Nerf guns are one of the coolest toys from our childhood purely because of how you could use your imagination to make them into something amazing. They could make you into a big game hunter, a secret agent, a space cowboy, whatever it was. Well, I found one of mine laying around on my shelf, and we're going to modify it to look like one of those things from our childhood imagination. What's going on, everyone? I am Joystick Nick, and I don't ever really know what I'm going to be doing. So today, we're going to be modifying a Nerf gun that I had. I just saw it laying around and wanted to repaint it away from the standard zombie survival color schemes. Side note, who decided that orange and lime green were the standard zombie survival colors? That seems like the opposite of what you want to be doing, which is hiding. This video I'm going to show the breakdown, cleaning, removal of the badging, painting, and reassembly of this Nerf Doublestrike pistol. The one in the video. Yes. First tip, straight off the top. Get a piece of masking tape. Stick your screws to it. Number them in the order that you took them out and document where they came from. This will save you so much headache down the line, it's not even funny. You probably want to take a picture of the inside as well, just so you know how it goes back together. I have a problem at the end of the video where I forget how it goes back together, and I have to go back through my video and try and see what's going on. Here I start sanding everything down, trying to get the badging off. I use a fine grit sandpaper. Some people can use steel wool, or if you have a Dremel with a nice sanding drum, you can do that if you want to get a little more aggressive. Now here I start filling with green stuff, actually liquid green stuff. It's really cool. It's like a plastic paint. You use it on minis typically to fill seams if you've assembled them, but this is what I have. I probably could have used something different, but I used liquid green stuff because it's what I had. I ended up having to put about 2 or 3 coats of liquid green stuff on it because it does kind of shrink up when it dries a little bit. And I kept seeing the lines pull in from the recesses that were on there. Like I said, I probably could have used something that would have worked better, but this is what I had on hand. Here I'm just going through the fine sandpaper, again roughing up the surface so that primer adheres to it better. Then I bust out the steel wool and go ham on the whole thing. This is just to scuff it up, so again, the primer is going to stick a lot better with those little tiny micro abrasions in there. Go through and clean up all those little edges and overspills of the green stuff. Make sure there's nothing sticking up, popping out. If there is, it's gonna show way through on the paint, especially after I do the weathering step to it. I'm gonna start stuffing the chamber and barrel with paper towels really soon. This is just so that the darts have the proper clearance and the O-ring and plunger have clearance in the chamber after I paint. Then I primed everything, and I hit my first color. It is a Gunmetal Black by Turbo Dork. I love this color. It's amazing. I'm also using a makeup brush. One, because it's wide, and I can get into these fine little corners really nicely. 2, it has incredibly fine hairs. So when I am making strokes, it's not showing any stroke lines, which is really, really good for these metallic colors because they have these little micro glitters in them, and they will align with the stroke, and you'll be able to see like how you brush it on, and it won't have that true metallic finish. So that's why I use a makeup brush on a lot of the metallic stuff. My big inspiration for this piece was vampire hunting. I saw this gun and I thought, stakes. This is a stake firing weapon. So I went with that kind of classic Van Helsing vibe and decided to use a copper and hit it with some gold accents just to really give it that old-timey kind of vibe. I ended up having to do a number of different coats of the metallic paints purely due to the nature of metallic paints. They're full of those micro glitters and they are very, very transparent in the suspension matrix that they use. So it definitely requires multiple coats, usually in opposing stroke patterns. So horizontal and vertical crossed over each other, for example, just to get that good coverage and make sure that you're not getting any brush lines and you're not getting any of that undertone pulling through too heavily. Here's where I come in with that antique gold, just to get that big accent piece in. And then I extend it up onto the front plate, right where the barrel comes out off of the body as well. The whole time that I was working on this, I was thinking about what I wanted to do with the grip, and I couldn't really land on anything. Wood seemed too brown, like it would look too samey, and couldn't really think of a good option. So I decided to go with an ivory that I end up mixing with a white acrylic paint, a little bit of a yellow acrylic paint, and some of the Painter's Bakery Painter's Milk. It is awesome. It's a matte thinning medium and flow improver, and it rocks. It is one of my favorite tools in my toolkit. There is definitely a link in the description below for that. Once all the base colors are down, I get to start my favorite part, which is weathering. I start with a patina wash that I make with some of a blue, a green, and more of that painter's milk. Just thin it out. I throw a little bit of white in there too. But then just brush it on really liberally and pat it off so that it kind of pools in those cracks and looks like a copper patina. Then I put some dark wash on the antique gold just to give it some definition, and I add a strong wash over the ivory grips that I'm trying to get going. Kind of darken it up, give it a little bit more of a grain, give it some texture, give it some feel. And it's a little dark right now, but I'll go through later with a white wash to kind of thin it up. Here I'm going through with the dark wash on the copper now, just to give it that kind of oily, weathered look. I feel like that's something that a vampire hunter in that kind of time period that I'm going for, that kind of medieval feel. Now I start to come through with a metal medium and highlight those edges, just kind of give them some definition, look like they've been worn, like it's been used, like this weapon has seen some wear and tear, some years. Get that shine on that gunmetal black, and I use it up on the copper and gold as well, just to give it that nice highlight, defining tone. And now, reassembly! Gotta put everything back together, make sure that we're pulling our screws from the right places. I remembered how this went, but I could not remember how it fit back in here, and it gave me a little bit of trouble. I went back through and watched the video a couple times to see how I popped it apart. Now I know you're saying, but Joystick Nick, what about the big black part that you didn't paint? That is where this comes in. I am going to use some red cloth here, and it's really fragile, and I end up making a fool of myself and spilling all of my water. But I get it cleaned up, and we super glue the end, tie off the nice little decoration affectation, fray it up a bit, and there's the finished gun. And that's the first of my Weird Maker videos. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching me make this as much as I enjoyed making it. Please leave a comment below if you have ever modified a Nerf gun before, or if there's something else that you'd like to see me do, make, paint, create, build, whatever. I painted this Hitchcock portrait back here. I paint miniatures in really weird color schemes. I do graphic design for all kinds of things. This is a Dungeons & Dragons character booklet. I make drink coasters for friends. I build props, all kinds of stuff. So please check me out on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/joysticknick, or on Instagram and Twitter, same thing, Joystick Nick. There are no C's in there. You can follow me on all those platforms, as well as my Patreon. All of my stuff is kind of ADD driven and all over the place and wacky and wild and doesn't really make any sense, except for the fact that it all makes sense, kind of, because it came from me. I don't know. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Take me home, country road. This is a lot more difficult, actually, having to switch between all of these. But this is kind of funny.